Okay, I'm back with another RENNSPORT video. This time it's going to be about the GPUs, the video cards. I'm going to be running a benchmark in the background at 4 different resolutions, and I'm going to be testing my 7900 XTX, the fastest Radeon that's out on the market right now, maybe for the next 6 months even, and a 4080 Super, which is probably the best bang for buck high end. I know there's more 4090s out there now. The prices are decreasing, but this one's pretty good. So I'll be testing that today, as well as a 3080 Ti, which I think represents something in the 4070 lineup. At least that's what other results seem to indicate. And then at the, I guess you could call it low end, a 3060 Ti versus this 6700 XT. These are around your $250, $300 kind of price range, similar to 2080 Super, something like that. I'm not testing using triple screen monitors for reasons I explained in my last video. You can see that a significant amount of projection correction is required. If you look on the far left and the far right image, there's a stretching that's happening. This isn't terrible, but I would like to see better implementation. Hopefully we see something by the time open beta arrives. I'm using the i7-13700K because it proved to be the fastest of the CPUs I have. And here are the driver versions. Note that RENNSPORT is at version 1.8.12. Here are the specs for the graphics cards I'm testing. Note that I have boosted the GPU clock, so they're running higher than stock. I've also done the memory, although it's not shown here. I went with the high graphics preset within RENNSPORT options, and the sim really likes to run full screen or windowed full screen. I just couldn't get a windowed resolution to stick. That's why I've restricted my resolutions for this testing. Also, we'll talk about super sampling and anti-aliasing in a second. So first up, why did I select this particular replay for the benching? Well, I actually did 5 to see which would be the best. And here's that chart now. Using a single 4K monitor and a 3080 Ti with the 13700K processor, DLSS quality for super sampling. Leading the way is Road Atlanta, 113.5 FPS. This is a time trial and real-time performance. The other 4 examples here are replays, which I downloaded through RENNSPORT, which is kind of cool. The performance difference between Daytona, Spa, and Hockenheim is pretty close, but Monza does stand out. And if you've been watching the replay above, I think it's just because there's really close battles happening between the cars on track through this point of view. I mean, just watch these cars go through turns 4 or 5. I think this really shows the strength, or one of the strengths of RENNSPORT, which is close racing. The netcode seems to be a bit more forgiving. As you can see, Monza is the most challenging to run. It has the lowest average frames per second, so that's the one I decided to go with for doing this benchmarking. The next thing to talk about is image quality. And with the YouTube compression, I can't show this in motion, so you're just gonna have to tolerate some stationary static screenshots here. With no super sampling and no anti-aliasing, this is what it looks like, and it's not pretty. Look to the left and to the right at the fencing, the structures of the building, the mirror reflection on the right-hand side, and the trees in the distance. You can clearly see some pixelation that's happening here, and this is a feature of Unreal Engine, specifically Unreal Engine 5. RENNSPORT is a UE5 simulator. That is why it's on Epic, the EGS. So now I'll cycle in some of the AA modes. Here's FXAA, followed up by temporal AA, and then we'll end with some TSR. Using the 7900 XTX, I did a performance comparison using these different AA modes, and here's the results. For an image reference, I have DLSS quality as captured on my 3080 Ti in the top left, and then these AA modes as captured on the 7900 XTX. In the bottom, we see the chart showing FXAA having no difference between temporal AA and none. Meanwhile, TRS does show a negative performance impact, a fairly significant one. It seemed to present the best image quality, but at a, 18% performance decrease compared to not running anything at all. In motion and in still image, it looks like DLSS quality is still the best option, but it's unavailable to a Radeon graphics card. What is available is Intel's XeSS, its super sampling technique, which can work on ARC, GPUs, GeForce, and Radeon. And I tested it at Ultra and saw almost a 5% increase in performance with the 7900 XTX. So here's DLSS quality compared to XeSS Ultra. I'm not sure why NVIDIA is showing up darker, but if you want to change the colors, I guess you could do that through other means anyway. From an anti-aliasing standpoint, I think they're close. So I decided to test all of the GPUs using XeSS Ultra just so that we could have an apples to apples comparison. But it is important to note, DLSS quality does seem to run faster on a GeForce. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these results. Up first is single screen 1080p, which I had previously shown to be the main resolution where we can see a CPU impact the performance in this. However, look at the GPU gap. The 4080 Super shows a 7% advantage over the 7900 XTX, but also shows a remarkable 34% gain over the 3080 Ti. The 3060 Ti has a marginal 5% gain over the 6700 XT, but if you were to turn on DLSS, I think that gap would grow significantly. When I bring up the VRAM usage and GPU busy chart, we can see in the dark gold color a very surprising result. All graphics cards are 100% utilized. This would suggest that UE5 is really well represented either by this tool or at loading up graphics cards. In other sims, I was struggling to get my 7900 XTX to actually go to the boost clock that I have set at 2950 megahertz. I actually saw it boost to 2932 at a max while benching RENNSPORT. Increasing the resolution to 1440p on a single screen, we see this. The 4080 Super again leads over the 7900 XTX, and the gap is still the same, about 7%, and the 3080 Ti still lags behind by another 30% or so. Both the 3060 Ti and 6700 XT are able to achieve over 60 FPS, and the GeForce still leads Radeon. GPU busy is still 100% for all of the graphics cards. However, there is some VRAM change here. It actually decreases in a couple examples. This is a beta simulator. I'm not going to read into this too much. All right, now at single 4K resolution, here are the results. And basically, it's a tie between the 4080 Super and the 7900 XTX at the top of the chart. Yes, the 4080 Super does have, a 3 FPS advantage in the 1% lows. And I am still testing at with Intel's XeSS super sampling. The 3080 Ti lags again by about 30% to the leaders, and it's pretty much a tie at the bottom with the 3060 Ti and the 6700 XT. But both have now dipped well beneath that 60 FPS threshold that a lot of us hold near and dear. When it comes to VRAM usage, we see an increase across the board this time, and the 3060 Ti might be nearing the limitations of its 8 gigabytes. It's using 87%, as reported by my tool for RENNSPORT. To run dual 4K, I had to use NVIDIA Surround and AMD Eyefinity to make 2 of my 4K monitors pretend to be one giant widescreen. At this resolution, I measured about a 5% advantage to the 4080 Super over the 7900 XTX, and both were able to average over 60 frames a second. The 3080 Ti lags again, but this time only about 20% behind the 4080 Super. So at this high resolution, it actually closed the gap, which is a bit surprising. And at the bottom of the chart, the 3060 Ti and the 6700 XT are struggling. Interesting to note that the 3060 Ti actually loses out on the minimums, but its average is higher. VRAM usage has increased again, now well above 9 gigabytes for the cards that have capacity, and that's probably why we saw the minimum so low for the 3060 Ti. It leaves 10% on the board because it needs that for other processes and Windows and what have you. And one last chart, just as a reminder for everybody, the advantage of DLSS quality. I think it looks better, it runs smoother, And also, performance-wise, it has about 18% over Intel's XeSS Ultra using a 4080 Super. So hopefully the devs implement AMD's FSR. So that about summarizes the video. I hope the results were interesting to you. This is a moving target. There are going to be lots of updates to this game, not just in the coming weeks, but as it rolls into an open beta, hopefully later this year. Yeah, so if you have questions, post them in the comment section below. If you have comments about how I went about this testing, by all means, let loose. And if you'd like personal advice, some direct consultation on what to upgrade with your current computer, or maybe you're speccing out a whole new computer, or maybe you've got problems, you don't know how to solve them, by all means, reach out through my website, benchmarkodysseys.com. Thanks for watching.